Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and lots to talk about this morning. Obviously, last night's result was fantastic. United bounced back. We'll talk about that and, Ten Hag in a few minutes' time. But I think the big story to talk about is the one from the Telegraph and the one from Simon Stone. Last night, he'd mentioned that the Elliott Group were going to be there. He's confirmed that and also confirmed basically what they're here to do. Telegraph, James Ducker talking about the Glazers situation and a determination to sell from the Glazers. Now, I think there's, it's almost a case of the good, the bad and the ugly here. And I'm not talking about the Glazers. I'm talking about, the situation that we're in. The Elliott Group really do concern me. Simon Stone has mentioned that they don't want to buy Manchester United. What they're looking for is equity investment or help to rebuild the stadium. Both of these situations are investments. We'll talk about what that investment is, but for me, it's a nightmare situation for Manchester United. And they're not the only ones hanging around. The Telegraph also saying that the Elliott Group, Oak Tree Capital and MSD Partners are also investment funds looking at Manchester United. We don't want any of this. We've always known that this was the case, and we've always known that American investment funds are very interested in Manchester United, as they're interested in a lot of clubs. So we'll talk about what the Elliott Group and what these investment groups represent in a couple of minutes' time. But I wanted to start off, we're also going to talk about a few transfer stories as well. Mason Mount, De Jong, Harry Maguire, the striker situation, and pick up on a few bits from last night as well. So lots to get into on the show today. It's Friday. We've got Ricky on the show at 4 o'clock live. We've got the press conference with Ten Hag at lunchtime. And it's the 8 o'clock Goldbridge has a drink show tonight. Might be water, might be something stronger. So love it, Friday. And we won last night, which is, look... Finally, we can't put Liverpool in the draw, but our most recent result is not a 7-0 thrashing by our biggest rival. It's still there, but our most recent result is not that. More non-sale news, says Mark. Mark, if you want to start your own channel, mate, 10 o'clock, rival me, go for it. You go and do it, boy. You crack on. If you don't want to watch the show, absolutely fine. Been doing it for 7 years. It's a news show. I'll tell you where it's coming from. Let's leave it at that. Mark's starting his own show on Monday. Let's all tune in to his fascinating, miserable stories. Anyway, let's get on with this. We're going to start straight away with where this is coming from. And as you can see, it's coming in from the Telegraph. I just need to make sure... Oh, why is that not in order? Because I'm on the wrong bit. There we go. So I want to start off with... Oh, why are they not in order? Here we go. That's the one I want. So James Ducker, Telegraph, Manchester United correspondent. Manchester United bidders will attend detailed presentations at Old Trafford next week as the Glazers are said to remain determined sellers at the right price. Executives will outline opportunities and challenges. So I want to home in on this first of all because it's a positive on a Friday morning. Hi Mark, can you call Keith Daly a prat? Says Ewan, just did. So basically, the Glazers are determined sellers. Now this show this morning, you might just need to fasten your seatbelt just a little bit because it's going to be a little bit heavy around finance. But ultimately, if you listen and follow, I feel like Teacher Bridge, you will probably come out of this with a little bit of concern, but a little bit of positivity as well. So what the Telegraph are saying is that the Glazers are still determined sellers. And as we know, and I'm not going to go over this because there's loads of new stuff coming out that we can talk about. We've spent the last couple of days talking about how the Rain Group are going to host Qatar offer and Ineos offer through Sir Jim next week. They're going to be shown Carrington. They're going to be shown contracts, plans for the summer. One of the interesting things that the Telegraph mention is that they're also, Elmaz is very happy because we won. Thank you, Elmaz. They're also going to be shown how £1 billion worth of spend on infrastructure will lead to big market growth and, business growth, which is very interesting that that's coming out. So basically, if we get new owners end of this month, you see a great summer transfer window. Irfan, can I come back to that, mate? So basically, what United are going to do next week when they're meeting up with Altani's people and Sir Jim's people and everybody else is they're going to be saying, if we do this, this and this, this and this will happen. And it's all about money. So if we build a new stadium or rebuild Old Trafford, we invest another $1 billion into the facilities and the infrastructure. We do this with contracts, we remove these players, we bring these players in. Over the next 5 years, this club is going to rocket in relation to success on the pitch and success off the field. And that's what's being pitched to these investors or to these bidders next week, so that the Glazers can hit this 5 billion that will make them walk away. And basically, when it says determined sellers, the Glazers are determined to sell, and they want 5 billion. That's the basic story going around at the moment. I think most bids have been around 4.5 billion. So another 500 million and the Glazers will take it and they'll walk. That's what next week is all about. I take a lot of positivity that the Glazers do want to go. And I'll explain why. Because if you didn't want to go, why are you inviting people who want to buy your entire club? Why are you inviting them to your house to go, if you renovate this, if you build a swimming pool, if you do this, if you do that, it's going to be a great place and it's going to get more and more popular. If you're looking to stay, you wouldn't do that. You'd probably keep that stuff back and go, if you give me this, I can do this, that and the other. So it's a completely different stance. I think the Glazers are looking to go. You know, don't hold me to it, but I do feel that. And I think that when you get stories like that coming out, that they're still determined sellers, and then you hear about what's going to happen next week when the Qatar and Sir Jim bids come over, it's a pitch. It's a pitch about, if you invest this, if you rebuild this, that's revenue, that's there. You know, if you do this with the squad and Ten Hag, that's improvement there. Look at what we've done without that. Look at what we'll do with this. It's a sales pitch. And if you've ever watched The Apprentice with Alan Sugar, if you look at that scenario, the Glazers, you know, Murta and Arnold, they're actually pitching to Sir Alan. It's like Dragon's Den. You know, you've got Sir Jim, you've got Qatar, you've got Elliott Investment Group, you've got whoever else. They're all sat there while they're being pitched to. And it's for them to go, I'm in. I'll give you 2 billion for 30% of your business, or I'll give you this for 5 billion for the whole lot. That's what's happening next week. So that's encouraging, without a shadow of a doubt. But I think at this point it's important to bring in what Simon Stone has said, that the Elliott Group, and there are others, were at the match last night, which is a concern. And they are interested in not buying Manchester United. They want to offer up equity investment or support to rebuild the stadium. That is a concern to me. It is a nightmare to me, because that is not what Qatar are offering. That is not what Sir Jim are offering. That they're not offering that. Like, look, as it says in the Telegraph, Qatar want to buy out the Glazers and Man United's minority shareholders in their entirety, clear the debts and invest in a new stadium, training ground and playing squad. That's not the way. That's what they want to do. So Jim, who's been advised by Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, does not plan to load any fresh debt onto the club, but will take debt to buy the club and hold on to it himself. And he hopes that his local ties could prove significant. According to their latest accounts, United stand current debt is 680 million. So presumably what the Telegraph are saying there is that Sir Jim's going to take debt to buy the club. He'll keep that debt personally with Ineos, and he won't load any more debt onto the club, but he's not going to clear the 680 million. So, you know, you make your choice on whether you like Sir Jim's bid or whether you like Qatar's bid. I don't actually care who likes what. It doesn't matter. But either of those bids are better than what's on the table with this Elliott Group. So Simon Stone is saying that the Elliott Group, and you can basically say this with any investment group, because the Telegraph goes on to mention as well that, here we go, so US hedge funds, Elliott Management and financiers Oaktree Capital and MSD Partners have also submitted proposals to Rain, offering to provide funding for potential suitors. It's not clear whether their offers are still being considered. Well, the Elliott Group were at the game last night, and this concerns me, and I think this is a nightmare situation. Charlie says, Qatar have offered a full buyout plus clearing the debt. If that's not accepted in the room, they will feel insulted and walk away. And is there a financial cap on dividends if investors come in? How will they be repaid? Will they have to share dividends with investors? Well, I think that's probably one of the most insightful comments, Zero Connection, and well done to you this Friday morning. I think that's one of the most insightful comments we've ever had, because look, the Telegraph goes on to mention this as well. It's a very good piece by James Ducker, and I forget who else he's wrote it with, but it's a very good piece. And it goes on to say this, that unlike the fraught Chelsea sale last summer, talks will remain a fearlessly kept secret as their bidding process heats up over the coming days. And bidders have agreed to non-disclosure agreements. And also, bidders are also preparing to receive more detailed financial information in a data room over the coming days. The two parties are the only two to have gone public, as we know. But I think you make a great point about the Chelsea situation, because when Chelsea were bought, I don't think Todd Boehly and his group can take dividends out of the club for 10 years. So that's a good and a bad thing. So let me just remove this off the screen for a minute and sort of summarise where we are, because I know on the morning show it's a news show and people are tuning in willy-nilly. But the reality is it is fresh news, but it is financial heavy. And I suppose if I had to summarise it down for you, you've got the situation this morning with the updates that we've got. The Glazers are determined to sell, and I'll tell you why that is in a bit. The Glazers are determined to sell. Qatar wants to buy the whole club. Sir Jim wants to buy the whole club, but will probably have a bit of debt with it. And then you've got these investment groups where Elliott were there last night, who want to invest, equity investment, or fund a stadium. Now, Qatar's clearly the best offer on paper because it's clearing the debt. Whatever you think about what that means for football, I think that's a separate question. Financially, the Qatar bid on paper removes the debt, invest in the club. You know, it's almost like winning the lottery, isn't it? It's like what Man City and Newcastle have had. Whether you're comfortable with that or not, it's a personal choice. So Jim's a local guy. He's British. You know, he's still looking to buy all of the club and be in control. There's probably going to be a bit of debt there. I don't think he'd have loads of money to spend when he gets hold of the club. And then you've got the nightmare situation, which is this Elliott investment group who represent any other hedge funds that are interested. So what does this Elliott group mean? And I'm using them in general because there's probably 2 or 3 others that are the similar sort of hedge fund. What would they do? Qatar, we know. They're going to buy the club, build a stadium, clear the debt, and buy players. Happy days. So Jim cares about the club, responsible ownership, wants to get hold of the club, rebuild it, put the Manchester back in Manchester United. Loads of people will like that as well. What's this Elliott Group investment group stuff all about? Well, very much basically, and next we'll discuss what that means for the Glazers anyway, and why they want to sell. So, Mark, could the Elliott Group be looking to get together with Sir Jim to let him build a new stadium? Well, Arjun, this is where we're going with this. So, the Elliott Group don't care whether it's Qatar, Sir Jim, the Glazers, or somebody else they fund. They are looking to fund somebody. They're basically interested in Man United, and they don't really care who they help to buy Man United or stay at Man United. They want to pump in a couple of billion, maybe 3 billion, into that football club and benefit from its long-term growth. So equity investment, and I don't understand what they're doing here. I don't know. Equity investment is basically, on a very basic level, and this is what Simon Stone is saying, the Elliott Group want equity investment, or they want to help rebuild the stadium by funding it. Now, if they're going to help rebuild the stadium, and they say to Sir Jim, we'll give you 2 billion to build Old Trafford. That's not a gift. That's got to go back. It's debt at some, they're not Man United fans, basically. It's the Glazers all over again. Because the Elliott Group are not Manchester United fans. They're not giving Sir Jim or anybody else 2 billion because they love the Busby Babes and Sir Matt and Sir Alex, and they've got, George Best shirts at home and they've got Gary Neville kits and all that. They're doing it because it's a money opportunity. They'll probably rename it, says Footy Trivia. But ultimately, if they gave 2 billion to Sir Jim in this situation, Sir Jim's got to give that money back at some point. And that's debt that we'll end up with. So it's debt. That's to rebuild the stadium if they finance that. Equity investment is something very different. And I'm confused as to how they would do this, because to me, when Simon Stone says that the Elliott Group are looking at equity investment is basically buying shares in something for a future payout. So whether they would give the money for somebody else to buy the shares in Man United. So I don't know what the Elliott Group are saying, Mark Goldbridge, there's 2 billion to go and buy a percentage of shares in Manchester United. And when that 2 billion that you buy those shares with, those shares we think are going to go up, and you'll probably make 4 billion in 10 years, of which we want 3 billion back. So you make $1 billion profit. I don't know whether that's what they're offering, or whether they want to buy shares in Manchester United and hold them for 10 years and then realise the potential in them. But again, it's somebody looking to make money off Manchester United. So equity investment at a very basic level would be me ringing up some gold company and buying a load of shares in gold in the anticipation that I'll double my money in 10 years or 5 years, and then I'll cash in. That's what equity investment is. These are not words that we want near Manchester United, because at the end of the day, what have the Glazers done for 17 years if it's not equity investment? They've done a very ruthless journey of equity investment, but basically they bought the club on debt. They never took a penny out of their own pocket, and then they took money out year on year as the club, increased in value. So I don't like this. I don't like it at all. I don't like publicly, saying that is wrong, because I've seen people saying Sir Jim's a bad bid or Qatar's a bad bid. And I don't think that's fair on the people that want to buy Man United, because they'll both have their own passion projects. But I don't see equity investment or funding a new stadium for somebody. I don't see that as something desirable. I see it as a nightmare when we've had the 17 years that we've had. Some of you might be going, I quite like the sound of that. But I don't like the idea of it at all. Make no mistake, any investment from equity or hedge funds will require a return. Saying the investment is for stadium rebuild means they'll basically own Old Trafford and will end up paying rent. Exactly, PQ, you've put it perfectly. And I work in US private equity. Oak Tree Capital are absolute sharks. They need to be as far away from United as possible. They're scary, says Anthony. Well, look, I'm not anti-American or China or Middle East or anywhere, or Europe investment funds. I'm anti-investment funds. I don't like that. If we'd never had it before, fine. But we've had such a bad mercenary ownership for 17 years. I don't want that. It's like after Ollie, if you said, do you want Rooney as manager? No, we've tried the ex-legend. Let's try Ten Hag. Someone with no touch point with Man United, who's clearly a good coach. I want to avoid that. I suppose the elephant in the room here is, if you've got Elliott Investment and they're looking to fund somebody to stay at Man United, the word stay is the Glazers. Why are we not scared that Elliott Investment Group or Capital or whoever else won't invest to keep the Glazers in? Because I go back to what the headline of the show is, Glazers desperate to sell. And this for me is a bit of a positive spin. I don't think the Glazers want investment like Elliott or Capital or anyone else are offering up. And the reason I don't think they want that investment is because it will dilute what they already own. They own 70%. If they give 30% to Elliott Investment Group, even if Elliott Investment Group say you can keep your 70%, but obviously we're investors, you're still diluting your profit. And you've still got to spend a lot of money on that club. Like, forget the stadium. There's about £1 billion worth of infrastructure investment that needs to go in. There's also money that needs to go to Ten Hag to buy players. So there's probably, I think I said this a few weeks ago, and we sort of worked it out collectively. If the stadium's going to cost $2 billion, and you need another $1 billion of infrastructure investment, and then Ten Hag probably needs another £500 million to get that squad as title contenders. There's £3.5 billion worth of expenditure needed on that club by whoever takes it on. And I don't think the Glazers will go, ooh, there's $2 billion of investment from Elliott Group to rebuild the stadium. But where are we going to find the other $1.5 billion that we're going to desperately need? So I think the Glazers are done. I think they're done. I think they know they're done, and I think they're determined just to get the best price they can, because I don't think the Glazers need about $3 billion to make Man United work. They haven't got it, and if they borrow it, they lose all their dividends and profit that they've got anyway. So they're sort of done. I feel that the Glazers are done. I might be completely wrong. I might be misreading the room, but I feel the Glazers are done. It's like, as an analogy, it's like having a Ferrari on your drive and you put it on the market and somebody offers you $1 million for it. That's a really good Ferrari. 100 grand. Someone offers you 100 grand for it. I don't know how Ferraris, how much they are. Someone offers you 100 grand for it because they know if they put the care and attention into it, you haven't, that car will be worth 200 grand in a year. But then someone knocks on your door and says, you know that car that someone's going to buy off you for 100 grand? how's about if you want to keep that car, but I'll give you 50 grand now? And you go, well, I'll only own half the club. I'll only own half the car, and that 50 grand you're going to give me, I'll have to spend on it to fix it. So I'll lose half the club and have no money. And that's why, in a very simple way, I think the Glazers won't take investment, because any investment they get will have to go on the club, and they'll lose maybe half their shares to do that. Now, if that was me, I'd probably do it, because I'd be like, yes, I care about Man United. But if you're just a mercenary who just wants dividends, why would you take investment that's going into the club and then lose half of the club in the process? You know what I mean? What I'm saying is, it's basically like being greedy, and you've got a big cake that you want to eat for yourself, and somebody says, I'm going to take half of that cake off you. What's the benefit? And the money that I'm going to give you for half of that cake, you've got to pay for the cake in the first place. So I don't feel like... I do think that the investment groups concern me, but I don't feel that it works for the Glazers to take investment. Why would Glazers miss out on business with Qatar, says Keel Robinson? And if 30% Elliott Group is correct and they want voting rights, then the Glazers won't do it. 40% share means they lose control of the club, says Pratosaurus. Oh, yeah, another one. There is only value in the club if they can sell it. Otherwise, it's all paper. Their model has been based on conning people. Man United is worth more than it is. If they fail to sell, their model fails. Andrew, the more I think about it, the more I think they're going to go. But I must admit, there is still a nightmare situation on the table where somehow one of these investment groups get hold of our club. You know, I think we're into the end game now, and I think really you've got to make a choice between Qatar and Sir Jim. And you know, somebody said to me yesterday, what I'm not asking you what you want, Mark, but what does Qatari ownership mean for Manchester United? And question 2, what does it mean for the Premier League? I think Qatari ownership for Man United means a very different Man United from the one that anybody's known. Not just me, but you know, people in their 60s, 70s, 80s. You know, we've never had this before. It would be foreign ownership, but we've had that. But it would be foreign ownership with ridiculous wealth. It would be a new world. I can't tell you what it would mean, but it should mean sustained success. But then again, you look at PSG and go, it's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that I think people think if we get owned by Qatar, we're just going to win everything. That's not guaranteed. I don't know why that is even an argument. That's one of my big pet hates, actually. Oh, if Man United get bought by Qatar, it's a cheat code and they'll win everything. I don't think that world exists anymore. I don't. You know, it's not like Man City aren't still rich, or Newcastle aren't still rich, or PSG aren't still rich. I mean, Real Madrid are always rich. So I think it'll be a new world. And I think that feeds into the second question. What would it mean if Man United were bought by Qatar, considering that Abu Dhabi own Man City and Saudi Arabia own Newcastle? Well, do we not live in a diverse world? You know, how many clubs are owned by American clubs in the English Football League? Like, quite a lot. I mean, I don't know is the honest answer. I don't know what it means. But, you know, I don't think there's enough evidence to say that it shouldn't happen. Maguire in for Martinez after the 7-0, says Rocco. I think you're at Slow Sports News. It's possible that the Glazers have an emotional attachment to Manchester United and view it as a legacy that they want to maintain ownership of. Augustine, I don't know what... I thought we said we're having a drink at 8 o'clock tonight. What are you talking about? It's possible that the Glazers have an emotional attachment to Manchester United. Augustine, where have you been for the last 17 years? I mean, how much evidence do you want that they have no emotional attachment to Manchester United? Bloody hell. They've got no emotional attachment. The only emotional attachment they've got to is their wallet. Welcome to United Stand Members Club, Amma. Appreciate that. So look, I suppose that's been a long-winded breakdown, but I do think it's a very important breakdown. We could have spent, and we will talk about transfers and Ten Hag now, but ultimately I do think that when you get new news about what's going on at the club, you know, Simon Stone says that the Elliott Group were at the game last night and they want to invest in the club through equity investment or funding a stadium. That's debt. That's a nightmare for me. That's debt. I don't want them anywhere near it. They're not fans. They're money men. Don't want them anywhere, and women. I don't want them anywhere near it. But if they did get hold of the club, remember, and this is the thing that's in my head all the time, whoever wins this race to buy the club, we're stuck with it. 17 years the Glazers have been here. 17 years. Remember, some of you weren't even born. 17 years ago, I was in my early 20s. Like, it's a long time. And whoever gets hold of this club, this time, they're here for at least 10 years. If an investment firm gets hold of Man United, they probably can't cash out for at least 10 years. And that's, going back to what somebody said there about how Chelsea can't take dividends out for 10 years and the Premier League said that. That's great. But on the other hand, it's bad. Because if you get owners who are investors and they can't take dividends out for 10 years, that means they're definitely going to be here for at least 10 years. So that's something to sharpen your mind. Whoever gets hold of Man United, it's not like we can go, oh, well, we've got Southampton at the weekend. It's our next 10 years at least. This decision that people want to go, oh, I don't really know what I want. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And we will be kept in the dark. Mark, could it be that the Glazers are involved with the Elliott Group? I don't think they are, Brian. I really, really don't. And what I would say, if the Elliott Group fund the Glazers to stay, I think the shit's going to hit the fan big time. Mark, will you be at SawCon? Says Thomas. Nope. And is there a danger with Qatar ownership that they would try to revolutionise the club, like changing the badge or renaming the stadium, says Mason? I don't know. I don't know, mate. I mean, I can't answer that question. Deacon, thanks for being with us for 11 months. Welcome, IGNI. Hi, Mark. Thanks for all the work you've done with United Stand. Been following since Van Gaal. It's my 30th today. Can you wish me a happy birthday? It'll be a pleasure, Ricardo. Happy birthday. And I'm sure a lot of people in the chat will agree with that. So, yeah, look. I think look, the main thing is we're going to start finding out what's happening in the next 2 weeks, as I said. I think the Glazers still want the deal done by the end of April, which is perfect for us. And I guess we'll see what's going to happen. But look, what did I say at the start of the week? There's 2 public bids and there's another 2 bids. That's a fact. There's 2 public bids, Ineos and Altani. Obviously, Ineos is Sir Jim. And there's 2 private bids. There may be 3. Always said those private bids are private because they don't want us to know. And if they don't want us to know, they ain't good for this club. They ain't good for this club. If the class of 92 had found 5 billion quid, do you think they'd be quiet? No, they wouldn't. Those bids are bad news. And they're staying quiet because they're bad news. Doesn't mean they're not in the race, though. Hurrah, thank you very much for being a member for a month. Appreciate that. Underpinning all of this, I think the Glazers want 5 billion, and whoever pays 5 billion gets the club. It's going to be a very interesting. Andy says they're staying quiet because they're assassins in the dark. That makes me think of Metal Gear Solid, which actually was quite good. Hi Mark, great morning show. I'm about to catch a plane from Sweden to Manchester to watch my first game at Old Trafford on Sunday, and I'm very excited. Enjoy it, Anton. Enjoy your weekend in Manchester. And Fridays are always great, says Ladios. Let me just remove him there. There we go. So some idiot in the chat. So look, let's move on. But as I say, I'm sure we'll get more and more news over the next week or so. We'll probably get more news over the next few days. But I think we just need to be very, very wary that I thought Simon Stone's updates were interesting as they were concerning, that you've got an investment group attending Man United games and considering they're involved. They're involved. And what was it yesterday? If these are private bids, I just worry about who might put the biggest bid in, because that's all the Glazers are going to go with. They're not going to care about what's best for the future of the club. Whatever you think. If an investment fund offers more than Qatar and Sir Jim, they'll get the bloody club, won't they? So, it's just always about what the best bid is, isn't it, at the end of the day? I guess we'll have to see. Anyway, let's move on to footballing matters. Quite a lot to digest, actually. Some of it I mentioned pre-watch along yesterday, but I know not everyone, some of you might have been at the game, some of you might have been doing other things. So I suppose the most the most baffling story came from The Sun, that PSG are looking at buying Harry Maguire for 50 million quid. Now, the first thing I thought when I read that was, yes, the feeder club's doing its work already. So if you've got PSG spending £50 million for Harry Maguire, that would be genius business from Altani straight away. because obviously PSG is owned by Qatar. Man United's owned by Al Thani, who lives in Qatar or is, has Qatari connections. Oh, PSG want to buy Harry Maguire for 50 million, and they want to get Scott McTominay for 50 million, and they want to pay 70 million for Dean Henderson, and Brandon Williams for 30 million. That's 200 million, please, for players that we don't want anymore. So that was my first reaction to it, because PSG logically wanting Harry Maguire makes no sense at all. So I think maybe feeder club might be. Could we just swap him for Mbappe? But you know what? PSG do have a history of doing weird things. They paid 50 million for David Luiz, didn't they? That was jaw dropping. So look, never say never, but there might be some. I mean, look, it's completely not right and it's completely immoral. But let's not pretend it doesn't happen. If Man United do get bought by Al Thani, there might be little things we can do with PSG that benefit us both. And look, are PSG as valuable to Qatar as Manchester United? Of course they won't be, because PSG don't play in the Premier League. Have Man United got a better chance of winning the Champions League than PSG? At the moment, no. But they're out the Champions League and we'll be in it next year. So we may be. I mean, look, controversial take or not, Man United have got a better chance of winning the Champions League before PSG now. They're out. We'll both be in it next year, and depending on who owns us, we might suddenly become a very, very, very good bet for the Champions League in the next 5 years. So look, do I think that Harry Maguire is going to PSG? No, because I just don't think they'd look at a player like that, and it's also written in the sun. But on a serious note, there might be some business that we can legitimately do with PSG in the future where, look, we're not feeder clubs, but relationships exist. Look, Real Madrid have good relationships with Spurs. They're not a feeder club. Southampton had a very good relationship with Liverpool for years. They're not a feeder club. Man United can have a good relationship with PSG. If Mbappe's leaving PSG and there's a good relationship there, why not come to Man United? Salzburg, and, this will happen. And look, I don't know whether this is going to happen, right? But if Man United get bought by Al Thani, the moaning people will talk about investigate them. They've got, look, Mbappe's gone to Man United. It's clearly dodgy. Well, it's not clearly dodgy to have relationships. Salzburg and Leipzig have been doing this for years. Sesko went from Salzburg to Leipzig for under 30 million. If Chelsea or Man United wanted him, we'd have paid over 40. So don't tell me that these little relationships don't exist, and they're not a problem. Is there any risk for transfers like that, says Faze? Well, I don't think there is a risk, because these things are already happening. Like, the RB clubs do it already. So I don't really see what the problem with it is. As long as it's not, blatant, why can't it happen? Certain clubs favour other clubs. It goes on. If investors fund the Glazers, won't there be a power shrink? The investors will become Glazers' number one stakeholder, meaning the Glazers will be indebted to them. I don't see it happening, Zero Connection. It's worthwhile watching the first 20 minutes, because I know it was a bit heavy, but I think we went through it quite well. So well done, everyone, this morning. Salzburg and Leipzig are owned by Red Bull, says Mod. Yeah, but that's my point. There's already two clubs in Europe that play in the same tournament in Europe, and they feed each other players. So I don't think it would be unprecedented, and it won't happen anyway. It'll be way more subtle than that. We won't have a situation where Verratti and Mbappe come to Man United for 5 million and Maguire and McTominay go to PSG for 100. That would be dodgy. But you might have a situation where Mbappe leaves PSG and comes to Manchester United because of the relationship he's got with the Qatari ownership of PSG, and they've got close ties with our ownership. That might happen. Obviously, we'd have to give him 150 million to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Those things, why not? It wouldn't surprise me if the Elliott Group are being used as leverage to get better bids from Qatar and Sir Jim, says Alpha Nation, and they all know we're coming. That's why they're saying it would be unfair with the Qatar ownership, says Chance. Well, look, I don't know who's going to end up owning Manchester United, but interesting story around Harry Maguire, because obviously PSG could have quite close ties to Manchester United soon. Would you swap Rashford for Mbappe, says MU? No. I mean, I'd love Mbappe to sign for Manchester United. I'd argue that Mbappe is arguably the best player in the world at the moment. So you've got to be a very stubborn person to say you wouldn't want Mbappe at Manchester United. I'd be intrigued how you'd make Mbappe work in our front three that's got Rashford in it. Because, let's be honest, Mbappe, Messi and Neymar, as good as they are, they're not really a team, are they? It's very individualistic. I think they try to play as a team, but there's too much flair there. I wouldn't swap Rashford for Mbappe because I think Rashford's a Manchester United player that's, come through a difficult season or two. Clearly loves the club. Fans are back behind him. Not that they weren't behind him, but I think it was just like, it felt like it wasn't working out and it might be time to go. I wouldn't do that, no. Frenkie de Jong, look, I think the summer transfer window really raises quite a lot of problems and issues. I mean, look, David De Gea last night, I put my hand... You know what? I've just got to say this, actually. It makes me laugh. Like, I've never disliked Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I mean, it's a shame you can't see my Instagram DMs because I don't dislike Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Let's put it that way. And I have said sell him, but I've never disliked Wan-Bissaka. I got tagged into something this morning. Oh, it's Goldbridge and his lot who just hate Wan-Bissaka and, he doesn't get any credit. I'm like, hold on a minute. I've just spent 6 months until January watching the entire fan base say sell him. And now he's playing well. There's no problem with saying sell Wan-Bissaka, actually. He wasn't playing games. Anybody who said in December we need to sell Wan-Bissaka in January was spot on. He wasn't playing games. And he didn't look like he was part of the team. He's come in and he's done great. And he should be our starting right back. But we're back into that world again now, aren't we? Where we win a game and the toxic element of our fan base has to go finding a way to be toxic. And I just want to say, I don't dislike Wan-Bissaka. I don't know where this is coming from. I'm not having that attached to my name or this community. We have not been a Wan-Bissaka hater. That's never happened. It's bollocks. I might have said sell him, he's not good enough, but it's never been anything more than that. And actually, I quite like Wan-Bissaka, and I always have. De Gea, I'll stand by De Gea. You're never going to change my mind. I'm never going to turn against David De Gea. It's too much of a long-term relationship. He's a legend of the club. I'm not throwing David De Gea under the bus, and it will never happen. You can call me stubborn or whatever, but somebody last night took one of my player ratings, clipped it up where I gave David De Gea an 8 and tried to put it out there, and idiots believed it that I'd given him an 8 out of 10 last night. I nearly got caught, to be fair, but then I saw that it had Wan-Bissaka under De Gea, and I was like, well, that wouldn't work on our player ratings because Delo started. So I gave De Gea a 5 last night. He wasn't very good. But this nonsense that I give him an 8 or something like that, it just shows you how weak-minded some of this De Gea cult is, because I acknowledged he didn't play well last night. But, typically I wake up this morning, I'm tagged in abuse about backing De Gea, and I just think it's so funny, and I predicted this would happen. Man United win a game 4-1, De Gea has a bad game, and suddenly it's a pile on De Gea, it's a pile on to me, and anyone defends De Gea, and yet, for the last few days, the mainstream media has made lies up about Bruno Fernandes, and the fan base has just sort of gone, that's okay. De Gea has a bad game, pile on. And I'm just like, look, you're never going to change my mind about De Gea. I know it's a hipster thing to say that we need Costa from Porto, but I'm telling you now, people take the piss out of age. I've never understood why people take the piss out of age. Are you not planning on being 40? What, you're just going to jump off a cliff at 30? I mean, it's coming. Age is coming. So I don't know what you're talking about, age. But one benefit of age is that I've seen it. I've seen what happens to goalkeepers at Manchester United. I've got a list as long as my arm of goalkeepers that I hoped would do well and just failed. I mean, even Ben Foster, who's on a Monday, very, very, very good Premier League goalkeeper, but Man United was just too much. Watch him in the derby against Man City when we won 4-3. Bartes, World Cup winner, it was too much. Tim Howard, it was too much. Mark Bosnich, it was too much. The list goes on and on and on and on. It's a really difficult job to be a Manchester United goalkeeper. And actually, in my lifetime, which is 40 years, there's only been 3 goalkeepers that have been anywhere near good enough. 3 goalkeepers in 40 years have been good enough to be a Man United number 1. Peter Schmeichel, Edwin van der Sar and David De Gea. my opinion, it ain't easy to be a Man United goalkeeper. And it's not about looking at Sanchez, Raya, Lafont, Henderson, Costa. I think that I don't know how long I've been gone. Oh, fancy freezing at that point. How long was I gone for? We're back. How long was I gone for? I don't know where I was. We're back. You're gone for about 10 seconds. What was I saying before? We're back. Yeah, so I was saying, like, you got Costa at Porto, you got Raya at Brentford, you got Sanchez at Brighton, you've got Henderson, whoever you want to be the Man United goalkeeper, right? You got people going, oh yeah, they'd walk in, they'd be playing like Bruno in goal, you know, they'd be brilliant, and I'm like, I've seen it. You know, Bosnich at Villa was brilliant. Barthez for France was brilliant. Completely got swallowed up by nerves. What about that goalkeeper we brought in? What was his name? I think it was from Torino. I mean, the nerves that the people get when they play at Old Trafford as a goalkeeper. Dubravka the other week. There's something about the Man United goalkeeper that is just pressure. Absolute pressure. I think De Gea had it last night for some reason. Like, you know, you've got to acknowledge that. Being a Man United goalkeeper, there is this weird pressure around it that you've got to have that mental strength. And it ain't as easy as going, oh, he's doing a great job at Brentford, he'll be good enough for Man United. They might be. And look, I like Raya, I think he's a good goalkeeper, but what if he comes and he just completely bottles it like loads of others have before? As I said, 40 years. In 40 years, we've had 3 goalkeepers good enough. 3 goalkeepers. Think about all the strikers we've had that have been successful in 40 years. Goalkeepers, 3. Our success rate with goalkeepers is probably quite low. That to me suggests when you've got a good one, don't be in a rush to kick them out. And that's been my stance with De Gea. I know there's room for improvement, and I know last night he wasn't good enough. But this season, again, countless times, he's made saves other goalkeepers won't make. I just think that's not a position that needs attention as much as some people think it is. But I would admit, last night it was really bad, and if Ten Hag decides he wants to spend £60 million on a goalkeeper, I'll go, fine, he's the manager. You know, I ain't going to go Ten Hag out. You know, if Ten Hag decides he wants to drop Martinez for Maguire, I'd be worried, but I wouldn't go Ten Hag out. He's earned that respect. He's earned that this season. So if Ten Hag decides he wants to move De Gea on, then that will happen. But I don't agree with it for the reasons I've just said. I think he's still a fantastic goalkeeper, a world-class goalkeeper. His distribution worries me a little bit. It did last night, but I wouldn't be spending £60 million on a new goalkeeper yet. I really think we should be bringing in an understudy, but we'll see what happens, I suppose. Frenkie de Jong, there's been an update on Frenkie de Jong. I think that he said that he wants to stay at Barcelona for a few more years. Very happy there. I mean, I've got nothing to add on that. I mean, all I can tell you is that Man United want to try and buy him again in the summer. They spent all summer last year. It's a very weird one, the Frenkie de Jong story. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I'd almost like to see Frenkie de Jong. Well, I'd love Manchester United to sign Frenkie de Jong, of course I would. But I'd almost like to see Frenkie de Jong signed for Manchester United just so we can find out what's been going on for the last 18 months. Because the minute he signs for Man United, he's not going to say, I want to leave. You know, I never wanted to come here and cry. I think he's just. I don't know why what's Man United's obsession with Frenkie de Jong when all he ever says publicly is I don't want to sign for Manchester United. So I don't really get it. We've just had a story coming in from the Manchester Evening News. Harry Kane is Erik Ten Hag's prime striker to reinforce the Man United attack in the summer. Sources say Ten Hag is intent on signing Kane as he approaches the final year of his contract. Kane's Spurs future is uncertain, and he wanted to leave 2 years ago for City, and realistically Man United are the only club. I mean, look, There was a story yesterday in The Guardian saying the same thing. So it's a repeat of that story, to be fair. But it's also coming in from Luckhurst in the Manchester Evening News. So you've got to take it. You've got to take it seriously. I suppose in some ways it's slow sports news, and Robert McCormack will be very happy if he's in the house. But I've been saying this for 6 months. I said I've got this massive hunch that we're going to sign Harry Kane. It's almost like 2 + 2 is 4. It's Kane. He's got nowhere else to go, and he's got to go. And he won't leave England because he wants to break the goal scoring record. He can't go Arsenal, he can't go Man City, he can't go Liverpool, he can't go Newcastle or Chelsea because they're not in the Champions League. So Man United is absolutely the place that Harry Kane will run to if he can. My prediction is we will end up in a situation like we did with Paul Pogba and Harry Maguire and Bruno Fernandes and Jadon Sancho, where we're dealing with Spurs all season, all the way till the end of August, and then he'll sign for about 100 million. And that's my prediction. I think it's so obvious that we're going to sign Harry Kane. And look, he's a world-class striker. He's a world-class striker, Harry Kane, and he will score goals for Manchester United. I'd rather sign Osman. I really would. To be honest with you, maybe Ramos from Benfica. They're younger profile strikers with a longer future. And arguably, I think they're both potentially better than Harry Kane. They'll certainly be better than him in 3 years' time when he's 33. So I can have a preference, but I'm not going to disrespect the fact that Harry Kane's world class. And my concern is the day he kicks a ball for Man United, he'll be 30. Now, look, Lewandowski, Ronaldo, Benzema are playing well into their mid-30s, but Harry Kane's English. There's not many English strikers that play the volume of football Harry Kane's played that are still playing at the top in the mid-30s. It's a different way. Lewandowski, Benzema, Ronaldo, they spent most of their 20s playing in Europe in leagues that weren't as competitive as the Premier League, that had winter breaks. Harry Kane has spent 10 years playing in the Premier League as the main player for Spurs. I think it's absolutely inevitable that Harry Kane is going to fall off a tree at some point in his career with injuries and slow down. But I might be completely wrong. It's not my money. I think he'll be successful at United if he can play like he has for the last 3 years. If the Glazers get propped up by investors, they will never get 5 billion profit out of a future sale, even if the club was sold for 10 billion, says Glennie. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, look, Harry Kane is not signing. It's not like we're signing. Trying to think. Danny Ings. He's a top world class striker. There's no doubt about it. But I would prefer we went for Ramos from Benfica or Osman from Napoli. I'd like Ferguson from Brighton as well, but I just think in a footballing sense, I think Harry Kane is a tap-in for Man United. There is no competition for him. The only thing you've got to do is spend months and months negotiating with a football club to pay them what they want anyway. Well, we've got a rich history of this. Arnold, Woodward, Murta, they love doing this. They love a player where no one else can buy them and they can spend 2 or 3 months negotiating and end up paying more than they're worth anyway. Like we did it with Ajax. We always do it. So I think on every level, Harry Kane is going to buy for Man United. Look, we need a striker and he's world class. No one else can buy him. We're the only club that can buy him. And, it will be a marquee signing that they can roll out when it's took months to do. They can build up the hype. So I think it's absolutely nailed on. And I've been saying that for months, so it doesn't surprise me. Bram says, we can't have 30-year-old striker. We need to go for a younger striker. Well, look, a lot of players play into the mid-30s now. Look, we bought Casemiro at 30, so you can do that. But it's there needs to be forward planning, though. I agree. Harry Kane at 30. If you keep Weghorst, he's 30. Martial's injury prone. Where's the young striker coming through? I mean, I hope that people like Joe Hugel and Charlie McNeil will come through, but they're a long way off that at the moment. Where's your young striker? You've got to have a young striker, and we haven't got one. If we bought Harry Kane and Ferguson from Brighton, I'd be over the moon. But I personally think Ferguson at Man United, and look, this is a hot take, but I think wherever he goes next, whether it's Newcastle, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, I think by the time he's 20 years of age, he'll be in a very high bracket and a very high conversation. I think that's a player to jump on. But, you know, I can see Man United missing the boat. And I think Ferguson reminds me a little bit like Pulisic, you know. And I know Pulisic hasn't worked out well at Chelsea, but I'll still stand by the point. Pulisic, star player of American football, at Dortmund, wants to play in the Premier League, a huge American fan base. It was a tap-in for Man United. We're owned by Americans, and he goes to Chelsea. And I think with Ferguson, it's another tap-in. You know, Irish, huge Man United Irish support. We've not had an Irish player playing for Man United for years. It's perfect for United, and you can guarantee he'll go Chelsea or Arsenal or Newcastle. You can guarantee it. It'd be perfect for Man United. Absolutely perfect. And also, he's a developmental player as well. I mean, we've probably got the best, you know, one of the top 3 developmental managers in European football at the moment. Yeah. Malp says Elliott Group isn't a good news. No, it's not. No, it's not. Mason Mount, 24 years of age, has been linked to Man United as well. Mentioned this last night. Again, I'd put Mason Mount in the Harry Kane category. I really do like him. I think he's a good player. But again, I would say if we bought him, I'd back him because that's what you've got to do. And I do like him. But I feel that for what you pay Chelsea for Mason Mount, you would get somebody 20, 30 million pound cheaper with good scouting in Europe. But maybe we need to boost our English quota. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe that's a reason to go for Harry Kane as well, because if Maguire goes and Williams goes and Henderson goes and McTominay goes, you know, there's a British quota there that's gone down by 4. So maybe that's what we're starting to look at. Maybe we've, you know, I mean, Man City have clearly done this a few times. Look at Calvin Phillips, £60 million just to have somebody who's English. So I don't know whether that's at play here. But just Keevan says Maddison's better than Mount. You know, Maddison's a good player. I don't disagree with you. But Martial's got to go as well, says Michelle. Be hard to get rid of Martial. Very hard. But look, the summer transfer window is going to be very interesting. And as I say, I think it's going to start to hot up when 2 things happen. 1, the international break is always a kickstart for the summer transfer window, always. And 2, this sale will determine our summer transfer window. I personally think if we get bought by Qatar, excitement will go through the roof because, you know, money's there, but it's how they can work the financial fair play things. If we get bought by Sir Jim or an investment group, I think people will be quite concerned because they'll be like, are they going to spend money? So, you know, I think that will dictate what we're going to do as well. Samuel Looker says that Manchester United intend to sell Martial in the summer. And look, for anybody who doesn't want Kane, I'd take that as a positive because Man United want Harry Kane and they intend to sell Martial in the summer. No, I don't think that's easy. It might be the aim, but it's not easy because selling Martial, I mean, do they think idiots exist in football? Who's going to walk? This is a very important point. 1, buying Harry Kane from Spurs won't be easy. You know, 1 year left on his deal or not, Spurs don't have to sell Harry Kane and they certainly won't like selling him to Manchester United. So they don't have to do it. It'll be a very difficult deal. It won't be cheap. You're going to pay £100 million for a 30-year-old. Around that. So 1, that's not easy. 2, selling Anthony Martial is not easy because he, you know, unless there's a league that plays on Mars and they've not been watching what's going on, everybody knows that Anthony Martial has been injured 5 times this year and has been injured a lot last year and he's on over 200 grand a week and has a year or 2 left on his deal. What idiot is going to buy Anthony Martial? And I like Anthony Martial, but we're selling him because he's injury prone. This is the interesting thing. If Anthony Martial could stay fit, we wouldn't be selling him. Ten Hag likes him. If he could play, we wouldn't sell him. So we're only selling him because he can't play. So what idiot's going to walk in and go, right, I realise you're only selling him because he's never fit. 40 million and we'll give him 200 grand a week. It's one thing to say we need to sell Martial. It's two things to say to find a buyer. As I said, with Martial, we might end up with the situation that we've got with Phil Jones, where because he can't stay fit, basically we just have to let them run the contract down. So, look, you could loan him out. I think we'll struggle to find a buyer for Martial. I really don't see who would buy Martial. And even if we said sell him on the cheap, he doesn't have to take a pay cut. Like United have had this problem with many players. They're willing to let somebody go cheap, but then nobody will pay the wages that we pay. So I think selling Martial in the summer will be very, very difficult. We should try and pounce on Ferguson if he plays brilliant against France in the international break, says Dylan. And you might want to do a deep dive on goalkeepers. I was happy with Raya, but looking closer, I'm starting to think we might need Costa more than Raya, says SK. Look, I'll leave that to Ten Hag. I wouldn't replace De Gea, as you know. If Ten Hag decides he wants to do it, I won't rant and rave about it because he's the manager. Costa's a good goalkeeper, but Costa cost Portugal in the World Cup. It was crap. Got caught under a cross. You know, he's not superhuman. Nobody is. Everyone makes mistakes. My big concern with any goalkeeper is that you might need to write next season off if you get a new goalkeeper, because it could take them a year to get used to the pressure of playing for Man United. And in doing that, look at De Gea's first year. You know, it wasn't good. Schmeichel's first year wasn't very good either. It tends to take a Man United goalkeeper, if they're going to be good, at least a season to bed in. And in that season, probably going to cost you wins. So, look, it depends what Ten Hag wants to do. If I was Ten Hag and I fancied the title next year, I'd make a conscious decision that I'm sticking with De Gea for another year, because I know he can probably win me a title. Yeah, there'll be some bad passes out the back, but we'll get a lot of clean sheets. If Ten Hag wants to win the title in 2 years, then maybe next year's the year to change it and bed another goalkeeper in. It just depends what Ten Hag wants to do, and I'll follow what he wants to do because he's the manager. Thanks everyone for watching. I just don't think people really do get how difficult it is to play in goal for Man United. I think they completely think there's a good goalkeeper playing in Europe. Oh, he'll be brilliant at Man United. It's so difficult. And as I said, in 40 years, we've had 3 goalkeepers that can do it. That's a really low success rate because it's really difficult to be a Man United goalkeeper. The pressure, the focus, the crowd, the atmosphere, it's just a really difficult job. And it doesn't matter how good you are for Brentford or Porto or Forest or wherever, it doesn't matter. Dean Henderson was brilliant at Sheffield United. Comes to Manchester United, plays a game against Liverpool and many others, is running out his box like he thinks he's up front. You know, remember that shot when Salah came through running on and on? His angles were terrible. He may as well have been sat on the bloody dugout with Ollie. You know, head gone. Dubravka, head gone. That Torino goalkeeper, head gone. Bartes, head gone. Bosnich, head gone. Ben Foster had it in the Manchester Derby game at Old Trafford, head gone. Tim Howard all the time. There's something about that Man United goalkeeper position that people don't respect. I respect all these people who do their little stats videos on TikTok. I enjoy them. But one thing they never do with their stats is, because you can't, is measure mentality and how they'll deal with the pressure of being a Man United goalkeeper. There is no stat for that. It's a leap in the dark. It's a leap in the dark. You could buy the best goalkeeper in Europe, put him in goal for United, and he'll just crumble. And that's my point. We've got a goalkeeper that won't. We've got a goalkeeper that will, you know, get a lot of clean sheets, save a lot of shots. Why fix it for a risk that could put us back 2 years? And that's why, for me, it's up to Ten Hag what he decides to do. If he decides to do it, I'll back him. But I personally don't think we need to do it. Press conference with Ten Hag coming up at lunch. We've got Ricky on the show at 4 o'clock, and I'm back at 8 o'clock with the Friday night show, which is always a few drinks and a bit of a laugh. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks everyone for watching. Really good show this morning. Feel like it's been a bit of a maths lesson, but hopefully you can take the positives. And I'll speak to you all in a bit. Have a great day.